We start with Donald Trump's new immigration policy. He wants to drastically cut the number of legal immigrants allowed into the US and for job skills to matter more than family connections. Solange Mougin reports.
After the travel bans, increasing the arrests of illegal immigrants and pushing to build a border wall, Donald Trump has now set his sights on legal immigration. He's endorsed a bill that would reform the U.S.'s permanent resident visa system.
This legislation will not only restore our competitive edge in the 21st century, but it will restore the sacred bonds of trust between America and its citizens.
The policy change speaks to Trump's conservative base, but economists widely agree the benefits of immigration outweigh the costs, as explained in an April letter to Trump by 1,470 economists, 6 of them Nobel laureates. The U.S.'s policy currently prioritizes family relationships, but in the future it would also establish a point system based on education, job offers, and the ability to speak English. It would put a cap on allowing 50,000 refugees visas a year, and it would end the current green card lottery that is meant to promote diversity. Criticized by Democrats and even some Republicans, the legislation came under fire at a White House briefing, where a reporter asked if it was, quote, engineering the racial and ethnic flow into the country. In a heated exchange, Trump's advisor, Stephen Miller, said he doesn't think it's racist.
The notion that you think that this is a racist bill is so wrong and so insulting. Jim, the reality is that the foreign-born population into our country has quadrupled since 1970. That's a fact. It's been mostly driven by green card policy.
The bill proposes to cut the number of green cards or permanent visas that are awarded by 50%, or to some 500,000 a year in the next decade.
And joining me now from Washington is Gallagher Fenwick. Gallagher, once again, a policy of Donald Trump's causing controversy.
Yeah, absolutely. An ire coming from various different sectors of the population, human rights organization denouncing what they perceive as a xenophobic bill, which is just, according to some of them, regurgitated campaign rhetoric that is basically served to Trump's base like red meat. That's one quote coming from some of those groups. Democrats up on the Hill also expressing similar concerns, saying that just because you have a PhD doesn't necessarily make you more useful for the American economy, and also questioning the logic behind this, as are some business leaders who are saying that it is a fallacy to believe that because you will lower the number of unskilled workers coming into the U.S. that you will see more American jobs being created simply because some of the vacancies being filled by those newcomers will not be filled by Americans who simply refuse to do those kinds of jobs. However, there is some satisfaction coming from some other groups, such as those who favor stricter immigration laws, who are saying that this is simply Donald Trump making good on one of his campaign promises, which was to put the American worker first.
Gallagher, what are the chances of this proposal becoming law?
Well, very dim prospects for this bill if it were to go to a vote in the Senate, notably just because, as we have seen with previous attempts at passing other legislative items, the Republicans in there have a very narrow majority, so it would be very difficult to get enough Democrats on board to reach that magic number of 60, the bare minimum, to get it through. Nonetheless, there was a bill, interestingly enough, introduced some years ago under the previous administration, that of Democrat Barack Obama, which contained similar items to this one. However, there was this idea that the administration back then be ready to lower the number of newcomers, but that meant that in exchange, those who were already here illegally would have to have a path to citizenship. Ultimately, the bill failed in a Republican-controlled House, but again, this time around, probably very little chance for this administration to get this type of bill passed. passed, and therefore putting it up against the possibility of seeing another pretty serious failure at trying to get a part of their agenda voted on in Congress.
Thank you very much, Gallagher. Gallagher Fenwick in Washington for us.